The rare earth conundrum: the West sits on mountains of flour, while China guards the secret recipe for bread. January 22, 2026, two reports from top global media outlets created a glaring contrast. The Financial Times citing industry data, revealed that 1 year after China implemented export controls on gallium and germanium, two critical rare earth-related elements, global supply chains are facing a chain reaction of shocks. Prices for core radar components and optical fiber raw materials have surged by 45% year-on-year. The U.S. defense giant Raytheon urgently issued a warning stating that the production schedules for its main air defense radars and missile guidance systems have been delayed due to raw material shortages, forcing delivery times for some orders to be extended by more than 3 months. On the same day, the BBC reported that a massive rare earth deposit discovered last year by a Swedish mining company in the northern Arctic Circle has formally announced, after multiple rounds of environmental assessments, that mining and preliminary processing plans will be postponed until 2035, a full decade later than originally planned. A counterintuitive reality has thus been laid bare before the world: the Earth is never short of rare earth ores. The proven reserves in the United States, Australia, and Sweden alone are enough to support global demand for decades. The West clearly holds massive resources yet cannot move or utilize them. China, while not the country with the largest reserves, controls the vast majority of core processing technologies and has now actively tightened the export valves. Even more surprising is that everything from the iPhone chip in your pocket and Bluetooth headphones, to the stealth coating on the US military's F-35 fighter jets and the radar systems of Aegis destroyers, is bottlenecked by the supply chain of the 31st element on the periodic table, gallium. It is as if every household in the world is stockpiled with flour, yet only one family has mastered the core craft of baking that flour into high-precision bread, with the ability to precisely control the yeast to create an irreplaceable texture. The real barrier to rare earths has never been finding the ore, but purification and separation. Rare earth elements coexist in ores with extremely similar properties. Separating a single usable element from the mix is as difficult as precisely identifying and extracting one specific individual from a crowd of identical twins. China can currently consistently achieve mass production at 99.99% for N-grade purity with a separation efficiency of over 98%. In contrast, most European and American companies are still fumbling in the laboratory stage. In actual industrial application, they struggle to stably output even 99.9% 3N grade purity, where impurities seriously affect the performance of high-tech products. What further overturns Western perceptions is that back in the 1980s, the United States was the absolute global hegemon in rare earths. The Mountain Pass mine in California once supplied over 90% of the world's rare earth demand, possessing a complete industrial chain from mining and purification to processing. Yet, in just 20 years, the U.S. rare earth industry shrank dramatically. Today, the only domestic rare earth processing plant in the U.S. has an annual capacity of just 1,300 tons, less than 0.5% of the capacity of a single Chinese rare earth enterprise. Even the raw rare earth ore mined domestically must be shipped across the ocean to China for purification and processing before it can be imported back for use in military production. This have or can't use metal dilemma is by no means an accidental industrial fluctuation. Next, we will deconstruct why the West has fallen into this disconnect between resources and technology, and how the contrast between perception and reality hides the common themes of global technological development, environmental balance, and supply chain reconstruction. January 22, 2026, the Financial Times reported that 1 year into China's tightening of gallium and germanium exports, global radar and fiber optic market prices have skyrocketed by 45%, and US defense giant Raytheon has issued supply chain delay warnings. On the same day, the BBC reported that Sweden's massive rare earth find in the Arctic Circle has been forced to delay mining plans to 2035 due to environmental regulations. The most counterintuitive reality is right before our eyes: the world does not lack rare earth ores. The West holds the reserves but cannot utilize them, while China controls the core processing technology and is unwilling to export freely. Your next iPhone and the US military's F-35 fighter jets are all stuck on gallium, element 31. It is like everyone having flour, but only one person mastering the core skill of making bread and precisely controlling the yeast. The key to rare earths was never finding them, but purifying them, the separation technology that turns ore into usable material. China can achieve 99.99% for N purity, while most Western companies are stuck in the lab, unstable even at 99.9% 3N in practical application. Even more subversive to conventional wisdom is that the US was once the global rare earth hegemon, supplying over 90% of the world at its peak. Now, it must ship its own ore to China for processing, and its unique processing capacity is only 1,300 tons, less than 5,000ths of China's. Below, we break down why the West is trapped in a have-or, can't use a dilemma, and how this metal game conceals a common proposition for global technological development. The collapse of the US rare earth industry is the dual result of self-consumption and external competition. Discovered in 1949, the Mountain Pass mine was a top-tier global deposit with an average grade of 8%, reaching 15% in some areas, far exceeding the grade of current Chinese mines. It rose with the color TV boom in the 60s and peaked with semiconductor demand in the 80s, forming a complete supply chain. However, after the 90s, the environmental movement targeted its crude processing model. Wastewater leak incidents forced the mine to cut production. Simultaneously, China's rare earth industry rose with the advantages of scale and low cost. Price wars drove rare earths from triple digits per kilogram down to $8.98. US companies collapsed under the pressure, and the Mountain Pass mine closed completely in 2002. This was not a simple industrial transfer, but an inevitability of development logic. The profit-seeking nature of US capital rejects long-cycle, high-investment industries like rare earths. Environmental pressure was merely the straw that broke the camel's back. China, through long-term strategic layout, integrated enterprises to form economies of scale and continuously tackled purification technologies, building a full industrial chain step by step. When the US tried to revitalize the industry in 2017, it discovered that the technological gap, equipment shortages, and market atrophy were too deep to fix quickly. Green lights from policy could not overcome the short-sightedness of capital. The EU's dependence and struggle further highlight the deep contradictions of the global supply chain. On one hand, the US pushes for desinicization, with rare earth magnet imports from China dropping 5% month on month. On the other hand, EU exports to China grew 21% month on month, and its annual import volume is 3 times that of the US. Europe's green transition plan relies on rare earth permanent magnets. The wind power and EV industries cannot survive without neodymium iron boron (NdFeB) magnets, and China occupies 94% of the global sintered permanent magnet market. The EU's critical raw materials act set diversification goals, but they are difficult to implement due to environmental regulations and high costs. Local processing capacity cannot even meet 40% of its own demand. The EU's dilemma is essentially a split between ideals and reality. Its strict environmental standards are naturally in conflict with the pollution attributes of rare earth processing. Huge investments and long return cycles deter companies. China, however, balances environment and capacity through technological upgrades, controlling over 90% of the smelting and separation market while flexibly regulating exports. This contrast shows that pursuing supply chain diversification while ignoring the construction of an industrial ecosystem only leads to deeper dependence. Balancing the green transition with strategic resource security is a common test for all nations. The chain reaction of gallium and germanium controls reveals the fatal weakness of Western technological substitution. China supplies 68.5% of the world's germanium. After the controls, prices skyrocketed 3 to 4 times, with Western traders admitting, "We thank God if we can get 10 kilograms." US military optical equipment relies on high-purity germanium. Lockheed Martin was forced to cooperate with Korea Zinc to find alternatives but faced issues with substandard precision. Even a tiny error requires a system redesign, and R&D for alternative materials takes years. US think tanks estimate that a total embargo could cause a $3.4 billion loss to US GDP. This shatters the Western misconception of technological omnipotence. The technical barrier of the rare earth supply chain is not a single link, but the accumulation of the entire chain from mining to purification to processing. The moat China has built through decades of investment cannot be crossed by short-term subsidies or policy tilts. This crisis reminds the world that the competition for critical minerals is no longer a contest of resource reserves, but a comprehensive contest of industrial ecosystems, technological accumulation, and strategic determination. Zero-sum games will only trap everyone in a development predicament. The delay of Sweden's Arctic mine is a concentrated microcosm of the contradiction between Western environmentalism and development. This large rare earth mine was blocked by environmental assessments, delaying mining plans by 10 years, a common occurrence in Europe and America. Even after the US Mountain Pass mine restarted, it still needs to ship ore to China for processing. Australia's rare earth mine production is limited, and its processing capacity is severely insufficient. In contrast, through SOE integration and technological innovation, China has achieved intensive development of the rare earth industry, improving resource utilization while reducing pollution emissions, forming a sustainable industrial model. Environmental protection should not be an excuse for industrial stagnation, but a driving force for technological upgrading. The West opposes environmental protection against the rare earth industry, essentially due to a lack of long-term strategic vision and determination to tackle technical problems. China's practice proves that through continuous technological investment, a win-win situation for strategic resource development and ecological protection is entirely possible. The core of this game is no longer who controls the resources, but who can find the balance point between development and environmental protection. This is a mandatory question for humanity in facing the global resource crisis. The rare earth dilemma has never been merely a product of US-China confrontation, but an inevitable result of global technological development reaching a certain stage. It exposes the flaws of Western short-sighted capital logic and industrial ecosystems, and also reveals the common human proposition of balancing technological innovation with environmental protection. Rather than obsessing over the zero-sum game of desinicization, it is better to build a more efficient global cooperation mechanism, share technological achievements, and collaboratively respond to resource and environmental challenges.